Have you ever wondered what may have happened if Naofumi, instead of becoming the shield hero, became another type of hero? One who has more viciousness to him, one who is uncaring. Perhaps something like a Viking. I'm Crown Fiend, and today that is exactly what we're going to be covering with What If Naofumi was the legendary Viking hero. I'm not going to waste any more of your time, so let's go ahead and get right on into it.
Insomnia.
In the days of long gone times, there was a civilization that was feared by all over the world. The Danes, or better known as the Vikings. They would go pillage, plunder, rape, you name it, they would do it, all in the name of Valhalla or Ragnarok. However, in today's society, the Vikings are gone. However, one man is a direct descendant from one of the most notorious Vikings in all of history, that being Askeladd the Tarnished. That man is Iwatani Naofumi, who is half Danish and half Japanese. Naofumi grew up in Japan. He has long blonde hair and a well-kept blonde beard with having brown eyes. His hobbies include working out, reading, and the occasional video game session here and there. You know, nothing too crazy, as he's heading to the library to just do some reading. You know, it's a rainy day, so it's a good day to go out to the library where hardly nobody is at and do a little bit of reading. As Naofumi gets to the library, he goes and starts looking through all of the books. He finds two books of particular interest, one being The Legend of the Four Cardinal Heroes. However, the book beside him reads The Legend of the Viking, and this immediately catches Naofumi's attention. So instead of grabbing the book of the Four Cardinal Heroes, he just tosses it aside and grabs the Viking one. As he starts looking through it, he starts just reminiscing about all the tales that his grandparents would tell him about the Vikings back in their day, along with learning about them through his history classes. However, as he kept reading, his book would change. It is no longer the Viking. Instead, it's a book about the four cardinal heroes. As Naofumi looks for the Viking book, he can't see it. So he says, oh well, weird, but guess I got nothing better to read. So Naofumi starts reading it. He learns that there is four heroes. One with a bow, one with a sword, and the other one with a shield. Naofumi says that the shield would probably be the most troublesome one to defeat, since high defense is really hard to get around. However, as he kept turning the pages went blank. As Naofumi says, okay, this is weird. Am I dreaming? Here, before he could even pinch himself, he saw a flash of light. As when he opened his eyes, he was nowhere he recognized. Looking around, surprised, as he would see three other people. One holding a bow, the other one holding a sword, and then finally a spear. As Naofumi looked down, he would see that he is holding a short sword. However, it wasn't just some ordinary short sword. He looked at the engravings on it and knew that it was a Norse short sword. Naofumi would hold it tightly and put it in the hilt, and he would look around before the people who summoned him would come running forth, explaining everything, the waves of catastrophe, why they're here, everything. Naofumi, however, would say that he wants to speak to their boss, as they would look at Naofumi, just now noticing just how menacing the guy looked. A full beard, long hair, angered, with muscles that looked like he could tear through a beast with his bare hands. They were terrified as they led him and the other heroes to the king. Standing before the king would feel a little bit threatened by Naofumi's presence and would have the guards on standby ready to act in case things went out of control. As they would all start introducing themselves, as Ren would say that he is the sword hero, Itsuki would say that he is the bow, with Motoyasu saying that he is the spear. And then he gets to Naofumi, saying, "Introduce yourself." As Naofumi would say, "I don't know what hero I am, but you can call me the Viking hero." As the king shudders when Naofumi says that, as everyone grows silent and actually starts backing away from Naofumi. He says, "Did I say something wrong?" The king says, no, not at all. It's just a Viking. Of all things, why would you choose to be a Viking?" As Naofumi stares him right in the eyes, saying that in the world he came from, he is the descendant of a proud and strong Viking. As they would all just sheepishly look at him and kind of back up from him even more. The king would say, "Very well, it's getting late. You all need to rest up for the night, and here, you, guard, show them the way to the hotel." As all four of the heroes follow the guard to the hotel, all four of them actually get around a table and start discussing, actually trading information, as Naofumi was a light gamer in this one, however, nothing to the extent of the other ones, who would pretty much catch him up to speed, as Naofumi would give them some advice on battle tactics. However, the other three didn't really seem interested. And so, the next day would roll around as the king would introduce them to their party members, and nobody dares to choose Naofumi. None whatsoever. They're scared of this guy, intimidated even, as Naofumi says that this is just fine with him. He chooses who gets to be on his party, not the other way around. As he starts to walk off, the king says, wait! As Naofumi just glares back at him, as the king says, "Allow us to give you some money to start your travels off with." And out of pure intimidation and fear, the king gives Naofumi 2,000 silver coins to start off his journey, way more than the other heroes got. And so Naofumi decides that while the others immediately rush off to go start leveling, he's going to take his time, as he evaluates his surroundings, going through the capital, looking at all the stores and marking locations of interest, just things to know in case something gets dicey along the way. As he goes to Elhart's shop, and he's actually very cordial with the man, as he says, "Wow, this is some great smithing in here." Elhart would say, "Ah, I see. You got an eye for talent, kid. What can I help you with?" Naofumi then explains that he would like something a bit light, a bit more Norse and Viking-like. And so Elhart says, "Well, I ain't got nothing like that on hand. It's gonna be a custom order, which will be kinda pricey." As Naofumi says that that's probably gonna be no issue for him. However, Elhart says, "Well, hold down there. I do have a special discount to give you, since you're one of the heroes. I mean, just look at you. You are a hero, right, kid?" As Naofumi says, yeah, he doesn't know what hero the technical term for him is, but he's the Viking hero in his eyes. As Elhart tells him that, he can just check his status plate, which Naofumi is surprised they didn't have him do that at all. And so he checks his status plate, and it does say the Viking hero. As Naofumi says, "Wow, this is actually pretty interesting. It seems the world gave me exactly what I would have wanted." As Elhart says, "Well, it probably picked what was best suited for you. Anyways, the price for all of this equipment that you're wanting with the discount and all, it's gonna be around 800 silver coins. Naofumi pays him 1,000, as Elhart says, wait, this is way too much. I said 800, can you not count? As Naofumi says, well, I like to keep the people who are kind well paid, especially with a man of your talents. I could use someone like you in the future, and no need to get off on the bad foot. And besides, think of this as me just showing my appreciation for the info. As Elhart would just nod and say, kid, I think we're gonna get along just fine. Naofumi would just grin and walk off. The next day, Naofumi would return to Elhart's shop, picking up his armor and gear, which Naofumi actually looked through his skill menu all last night, and found out that he could wield multiple weapons as long as they were of the Viking variety. There was no specific one weapon rule to the Viking hero. He just could only use weapons that Vikings historically used, such as axes, spears, bows, and short swords. He wasn't allowed to use anything other than those specific weapons, and they had to have been made with the same materials that Vikings used for their weapons. This would actually be a good trade-off for the skill since it allows him to use multiple weapons. However, they are very difficult and need precise crafting. So Naofumi decides to go ahead and start leveling up. When he does, Naofumi realizes that his leveling is actually very quickly, as by the end of the day he's already at level 5. However, he does start to notice diminishing returns, and he's not fully wanting to go further in without having some kind of bait for the other monsters that might just be a bit stronger. So, Naofumi remembers that there was this shady looking guy that sticks to alleys, and he goes to find him, as the slave trader is unaware as Naofumi appears behind him. With the slave trader being caught off guard, Naofumi says that he's here to purchase something from him, as the slave trader grins and says, right this way then. As he shows off his selection of slaves to Naofumi, Naofumi says that he's not going to spend too much money. He's not expecting it to live very long, and that's just fine. He basically is going to start using it as live bait to attract other people's attention while he goes in for the kill. Which, the slave trader says, oh, then you'll want the cheap and disposable type. Right this way. As he shows Naofumi to the back, Naofumi sees something that immediately catches his eye. A girl with raccoon ears. He says, I want that one. As the slave trader says, are you sure? She's rather sick and doesn't really have long for that world. I fret. As Naofumi says, that's perfect. As the slave trader grins and says, oh, may I interest you in something else then? It may take time for this to come to fruition, but it will be very helpful on your journey. As Naofumi says, depends on what it is. As the slave trader offers him gotcha eggs that he had gotten in. As there's only 2 left, Naofumi decides that he's going to go ahead and take it, as he goes ahead and takes Raphtalia and both of the gotcha eggs. Raphtalia gets her slave crest, and Naofumi tells her that he's a hero, the Viking hero. However, he's not a nice person. He's here to defeat the waves and fight for the glory of going to Valhalla. Raphtalia, not knowing what Valhalla is, asks Naofumi to describe it to her. Naofumi starts describing it to her as they head towards the meal that Naofumi had already paid for and was just waiting for it to get cooked. However, it wasn't at any restaurant in particular. Instead, he found a pretty good place that has a chef that's trying to start up his own business and is wanting customers to come and try his food for cheap. And so Naofumi decides that will be their dinner. It's cheap, it's quick, and he doesn't really have to worry about anybody looking at him or staring at Raphtalia and trying to cause trouble with him. So while they eat, Naofumi goes ahead and tells Raphtalia everything about the Viking way, including Ragnarok, Valhalla, the World Serpent, the gods, everything. And Raftalia mainly clings on to the notion of a Valkyrie. If at all possible, she would love to meet a Valkyrie. Naofumi says that Valkyries only appear to lead the best warrior to Valhalla. And Raftalia says then she'll become a great warrior so that a Valkyrie may lead her to Valhalla, or to allow her to join the Valkyrie Order. Naofumi says, sure, if you got the spunk for it, why not? As Raftalia says, oh, I do. I promise you I do. And so, the next day, Naofumi decides to test the kid's resolve. After having her wake up the previous night, Naofumi was actually really tired. He didn't really get much sleep since Raftalia kept squirming and kicking and screaming in the middle of the night until he kicked her off the bed and threw a pillow at her. And so, Raftalia actually does very well. She's very quick to pick up on things, and her two twin daggers actually come in very handy, since they did make a pit stop by Elhart's shop to actually get her some gear. Nothing too fancy, since Naofumi really wasn't going to pay too much for her, since he wasn't sure if she was going to survive or not. However, Raftalia easily starts clearing things out because she's driven by the thought of Valkyries. The thought of getting to go to Valhalla and meeting one, it drives her. It gets her past her fright to kill things, because Naofumi has unintentionally inspired hope into Raftalia, which is a very powerful thing for a young girl who's dealing with sickness and has had a terrible life. And so, Raftalia actually, by the end of the day, is able to defeat everything in this area very easily. And so, Naofumi does notice that he is getting XP from this, so he really doesn't mind going deeper into the forest anyway. If Raftalia dies, she dies, and, you know, he'll just keep leveling up from then on there and get another one. She's replaceable in his eyes. There's no real attachment to her. And so, the two head in as Naofumi catches a rabbit demanding Raftalia kill it. As she says, but it'll bleed. And her fear of blood starts to surface up a little bit, and then Naofumi quickly reminds her that they are Vikings. Blood is what they will bathe in, their enemy's blood. They are here to spill it, as the gods will only allow warriors into Valhalla, not some weakling that can't even kill a rabbit. And with this, Raftalia actually kills the rabbit, as she says, you're right, I'm sorry, as Naofumi says that he's gonna toughen her up and make a warrior out of her, whether she likes it or not. The next few weeks is just them leveling, and Naofumi realizes that he is running dangerously low on cash. And so, he goes to Elhart and asks if there's any way that they can make some quick cash. Elhart says yeah, but he doesn't recommend them go anywhere other than Loot Village. There's a mine over there that they can go to get gemstones and sell. They're actually quite valuable. And if they find any ore down there, bring it to him so he can continue crafting on the certain weapon that Naofumi has ordered. Naofumi says very well then, as the two make their way to Loot Village. Going across and entering a new village, Naofumi actually likes this place way more than the royal capital, as it's kind of just a normal place. Nothing's too crazy expensive, it's not that lively, it's peaceful, out of the way, it's perfect for him. And so, Naofumi goes around looking and making mental notes of everything, marking places of interest, as well as just gathering information about the mine. And so they finally head on in, as Naofumi immediately can tell that there is something in here. Looking down and seeing dog tracks, he grips the dirt and rubs it in his hand, saying that these tracks are fresh, however, they weren't made today, probably last night. And so he tells Raftalia to be on her guard. If she dies, then oh well. However, Raftalia says that he doesn't need to worry about her, that she'll kill the beast and prove that she's a valiant warrior. Naofumi smiles and says, "Sure, kid, do whatever you like." As they head on further in, Naofumi starts picking and actually gets quite a bit of gemstones before they eventually run in to the two-headed dog. This causes Raftalia to freeze up and tense. She can't help but realize that this dog looks very similar to the monster that killed her family and her parents. Raftalia is in fear, frozen solid. Naofumi goes over there and tells her, "So much for being a valiant warrior. Stand back, kid," as he pushes her to the ground. As the beast begins to get ready to charge at Naofumi. However, Naofumi has a skill activated called Blind Sight, which allows him to make the first move instinctively and quickly, and it is always a critical hit as soon as the beast enters his range, which is about 2 meters. As soon as the beast gets close enough to bite Naofumi, the skill activates, which allows him to get a critical hit, also blinding the dog in one head, slitting both of its eyes, and it can no longer see out of that head. The dog is going crazy in pain, howling. However, with the other head, it sees Raftalia and goes to attack her. Naofumi lets it by so he can get a strike on the dog's back. However, Raftalia, seeing this, thinks that Naofumi must be testing her. There's no way that he would actually let her die. Right? Wrong. As Naofumi just immediately continues his attack without saying a word. Raftalia, feeling anger well up inside of her, says, "He was really gonna let me die. That bastard. He doesn't give a damn about me. Am I just bait?" As Raftalia's anger floods, she's lost control of herself, and she's just attacking, jumping at the dog's head, stabbing her daggers into its eyes over and over and over again. As Naofumi finally stabs into the dog's stomach and pulling back, gutting it. Raftalia says, You were really gonna let it eat me, weren't you?" Naofumi says, "Well, yeah, pretty much. Not even gonna try to hide it. If it had killed you, I wouldn't have really missed you. To be honest, you're disposable. Don't forget that." As Naofumi begins to go further into the cave, he gets a good amount of gemstones as Raftalia is very angry with him and is actually rethinking her decision. However, the slave crest will not allow her to leave, and so she is forced into servitude underneath Naofumi. The two then exit, and Naofumi sells the gemstones for quite a lot of money. It's actually very substantial. They end up getting about 500 gold pieces, 10,000 silver, and about 20,000 copper. They then head back to the royal capital after Naofumi made a deal ensuring that he is now the lord of Loot Village, or at least the owner of it. So from there, they head back to the capital, see Elhart, and report back to him. But just as they do, something strange happens. The eggs, they begin to crack, and right there before their eyes, Naofumi sees a little white snake as it starts slithering up Naofumi's arm and wraps itself around his neck, as it just stares at Elhart, while the other one actually gets a lot bigger, being about half the size of Raftalia. It's a dragon. A little one, but still a dragon nonetheless. The color is blue, as it has brown eyes. Naofumi thinks of what to name them. He sees the dragon and says, "You know, that shade of blue, the brown eyes, I'm gonna call you Balder, after a god of Norse," as Balder actually likes that. However, the snake gets a little bit jealous, as Naofumi says, of course, I could never forget you," as he says, "Your name will be Jormungandr, after the world serpent," as Jormungandr is actually very pleased by this name, as Raftalia notices Naofumi is really paying so much attention and care to these two that were just hatched out of eggs, as they seem very loyal to Naofumi. Which then Elhart says that, hey, you know, you haven't really leveled these two up. Why not leave them with me? Just this once, for the first wave. As Naofumi says, yeah, well, when's the first wave supposed to happen anyway? As Elhart says, wait, they didn't tell you about the Dragon Hourglass? Naofumi says that he tried to get information on it, but the church was less than cooperative with him. As Elhart says, figures. As he begins to tell Naofumi everything about the Dragon Hourglass, about how they can get their class upgrades from there, but also tells you how long until the next wave. So, Naofumi goes to the church and goes straight to the Dragon Hourglass, getting the time on there as he sees it has 48 hours. As Naofumi says not a whole lot of time left. This is just great. However, he then runs into 3 people in particular, the other heroes, as Motiyasu begins to try to come over there and flirt with Raftalia. However, after the whole Naofumi incident, she trusts no hero. In fact, she hates all of them equally, no matter who they are. If it's a hero, she has nothing to do with them. And so she just stares at Motiyasu, which he can kind of get the hint, and he's like, wow, you sure can pick him, Naofumi. As the other 2 heroes ask what he's been up to, Naofumi says it's none of their damn business and that they best get out of his way if they want to make it out in one piece. The other heroes step aside as they don't think they can really challenge Naofumi at all. After all, Naofumi's level at this time is about 20, as Raftalia is about level 18. The other 2 are level 1 since they were just hatched. And so Naofumi decides to head back to Elhart to eat, drink, and relax before the wave, as he starts psyching himself up on the day of the wave as the clock counts down to 10, 9, 8, eventually getting to 3, 2, 1. The wave begins, and Naofumi is immediately teleported with Raftalia, as Baldur and Jormungandr are actually with Elhart. Once they're teleported in, they immediately notice that they're near Loot Village, and that it hasn't been fully evacuated. And since Naofumi is like the owner of Loot Village, he doesn't need Raftalia to tell him anything. They immediately head towards Loot, because Naofumi's not about to lose an asset that he just got. Once he arrives, he notices that the monsters have all started attacking everything, and Naofumi immediately cuts them down to size. It's not even a contest. Naofumi is on a rampage, just cutting through everything with his short sword, while Raftalia goes around killing everything with her daggers. However, Naofumi then starts to use an axe along with his short sword, something that Elhart had completed for him, as he takes it to throwing it at the Hornets monsters, while he just slices down everything else, picking it back up and going over and over again. And by the time they get done, they notice that the heroes still haven't made that much progress on the Chimera, and Naofumi is battle hungry. However, he wants to do this smart, so he activates his skill, Astral Projection Army, which, depending on how leveled up the skill is, depends on the number of soldiers that he can actually summon. However, they are all astral projections and can't withstand a whole lot of damage being dealt. However, the skill is only currently at around level 5, so Naofumi decides to summon 5 astral archers, who all take aim at the Chimera, and since their damage scales to Naofumi's damage output, they do an insane amount of damage, bringing down the Chimera very easily, and the wave is brought to an end. And after the wave is done, the king holds a celebration for the heroes' victories, that which Naofumi is very much so happy to participate in. However, Raphtalia walks up to Naofumi while he's drinking, saying that she demands a reward for her part in the wave. And Naofumi says, "Certainly, I'm not going to make you work for free. You want a reward? Tell me what it is." And she says that she wants to have a duel with Naofumi. And Naofumi says, "What? Are you serious?" Raphtalia glares at him saying, "Yes, I want to have a duel with you right here and right now. Swear upon it." As Naofumi looks at her and says, "Alright then, I accept. My name is Iwatani Naofumi, descendant of Askeladd the Tarnished. I swear to Odin that I accept this duel." As Raphtalia knows that this is not an oath to be made light of, and so she's very happy. As before they can even begin their duel, Mine tells Motiyasu that that girl is a slave, and he immediately makes a huge commotion out of it. And Naofumi says that he's the type of person that he hates the most. And Motiyasu says, "What do you mean?" As Naofumi says, the self-righteous kind. The type that make it seem like they're doing this for the right reason, but really, all you're trying to do is just make yourself look better and villainize me. So how about you put your money where your mouth is and let's have ourselves a fight. As Motiyasu says that that's perfect. That's exactly what he was about to challenge him to. And Naofumi says, "Great," before punching Motiyasu straight in the face, as everyone is astonished at Naofumi's bravery. This isn't a duel, and Naofumi says he didn't ask for a duel. He said a fight. And in a fight, there is no begin. It starts when the first punch is thrown, and Naofumi just started this fight. Motiyasu gets his spear out and tries to attack. However, he is effortlessly parried by Naofumi, just swatting his attacks away like flies, as he begins to berate Motiyasu for being very sloppy, saying it's a good thing that he helped them out take down that chimera, otherwise Motiyasu would have died. And since Naofumi is a few levels higher than Motiyasu on this one from all the extra fighting that he did at loot, Motiyasu doesn't stand a chance. He's outpaced in terms of movement, outskilled by Naofumi's movements and skill with a sword, as well as just over-leveled. Naofumi just has everything going his way, and as soon as Mine tries to use one of the blasts, Raphtalia holds a dagger to her throat, saying that she is not going to interfere with Naofumi's duel, as Mine looks very sheepishly. However, all the people in the other hero's party start looking at how skilled Naofumi is, saying that if he's this skilled and the other heroes are basically just being beaten like babies, why don't they go ahead and just join up with Naofumi? After all, the Viking hero seems to have his own way of doing things, and it looks to be pretty damn fun. And so, Naofumi continues on with the duel, embarrassing Motiyasu before throwing his sword down and has his hands out in a fighting stance, as Motiyasu rushes at Naofumi, and at this point, he's determined to kill him. He's been embarrassed enough. However, Naofumi just grabs Motiyasu's arms, headbutting him, kneeing him in the stomach, before stomping his knee in, breaking it, and just continues to beat Motiyasu until the king says, "Enough, the winner is Naofumi." As Naofumi says, "Well, looks like you didn't want to lose one hero, even though I think it would be better if this upstart dies. He'd cause people a lot less trouble that way." Everyone starts to immediately rush at Naofumi, saying that he did an amazing job defeating that hero, who has absolutely no tact or elegance. Naofumi just smiles at this, as he has multiple people trying to ask to be in his party, and Naofumi says no to each and every one of them, declaring that he has his own way of recruiting party members, and that is exactly what he's going to stick to. However, he may change his mind eventually if they're strong enough. So continue training and hope that I recruit you one day. As all of them have a little bit of hope in their eyes. After that, however, Naofumi would then go to Elhart's shop to collect Balder and Jormungandr, as he would see there's quite a big difference with them now, seeing as how they're both humanoid and completely not clothed. As Naofumi would look at Elhart with a little bit of shock, and Elhart says, "They only just did this. It wasn't me, kid. Trust me, I'm just as surprised as you are, and I was actually getting them some clothes." As Naofumi says, what happens if they transform back? Elhart says, "Well, the clothes will rip. I don't know what to tell you. This is only a temporary fix. I can't, make magical clothes. You'd have to see a dressmaker about that." As Naofumi says, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go take a visit to the dressmaker. You two stay here. I'll be right back." Naofumi would then go with Raftalia to the dressmaker, as she says that she doesn't have any magical clothes, and that she would have to actually see the two when she gets the material to actually be able to make it. And Naofumi says, "Do you know anywhere we could get the thread from?" And she says, "Well, maybe the magic shopkeeper has some." As Naofumi says, "Great, another place to go." As Naofumi heads to the magic shopkeeper, seeing that she doesn't have the gemstone in order to make the thread. Naofumi then goes back to Elhart's shop, collecting the two, saying that they're going to go on a little bit of a road trip, and that they actually need to come with so they can start leveling up. As the two of them say, "Okay." And so they actually end up going in their human form, because Naofumi is just saying, "Don't rip the clothes, and if you're going to transform, take them off, so that way when you transform back, they're not torn until we get you these magical clothes." As they say, okay. So it's going to take a little bit for them to get ready for battle, but since they are registered in Naofumi's party, and since now he's actually taking them to level up, they do kill things along the way. And along the way, they run into a trader who asks them for a lift. Naofumi agrees, as they escort the trader down there, and of course bandits try to rob Naofumi. However, seeing it's the Viking hero, they actually want to try to run for their lives. However, they don't get very far before Naofumi catches up with them and demands that they hand over everything in their possessions. Seeing that, he has a dragon with them, they all kind of just agree, as they hand over all their belongings and Naofumi lets them go. The trader is impressed with Naofumi's spirit and gives him a discount. As he gets there, he then goes into the cave to get the gemstone. However, the magic shop owner goes with him. With Balder and Jormungandr and Raftalia in tow, they head down there where they come across a chest. They look inside and notice that there's nothing in there, as the magic shop owner actually looks in and starts to freak out, telling them that the cursed seed that was in there is missing. Naofumi says, "Oh, this is probably going to come back to bite me in the ass someday, isn't it?" As the magic shopkeeper says, "Who would do such a thing?" Naofumi just looks and says, "The other heroes." As they keep moving on, they eventually come to where they need to be. However, they are then ambushed by the Nue that's there to make its nest. As a fight ensues, Naofumi is actually looking forward to this, as he is very, very excited. He charges at the Nue as it keeps coming. However, Balder gets right in the way and actually ends up punching it so hard, as Naofumi sees that Balder, through all the leveling on their way here, has actually unlocked a skill called hybrid form, which allows him to turn his arms into his dragon arms, have the wings on the back, and that's pretty much it. However, he still has full control over all of his powers and abilities and skills that he has in his dragon form. So it's kind of a neat little thing. The only thing is they're not quite as powerful, since he's only in his hybrid form. But this is still more than enough along with everybody's attacks, as Jormungandr doesn't have a hybrid form, but instead his snake form has grown a lot bigger, as he's able to fully wrap around the Nue, biting into it, poisoning it, as Jormungandr then goes away as Naofumi comes in, stabbing the Nue, killing it, as he then cuts its head off and actually holds it up as if a trophy, showing it to his squad, as Baldur and Jormungandr both yell in excitement, as Naofumi just laughs with them, saying, "We'll be eating well tonight, boys." And the XP they got from that was crazy. And once they get their gemstones, they head on out of there as thread begins being made, and they eventually get the clothing. Now, from here, we're going to take a little bit of a different path. You see, Naofumi has been thinking about something. This kingdom, it's all too weak, and it celebrates the weak. This is not something that he would actually go along with for very long. So he begins to talk to Elhart, wondering if there were any other countries that he could go to. And this is where Elhart tells him about Shield Frieden. However, they worship the shield, they dislike the other heroes, but since Naofumi is the Viking hero, which hasn't been seen since ancient times, who knows how they'd receive him coming there. However, Naofumi said it would be worth a shot. However, he does have 2 jobs tasked to him from the trader, as he says, He looks at one and sees that there needs to be a delivery of herbicide as overgrown vines. Naofumi's not a fool. He knows this is where the cursed seed was planted. However, he doesn't feel like dealing with it himself. Another one is a request for medicine. Then again, it doesn't really sound like his thing to do. But the rewards would be worth it, and if he could get the people there to swear their loyalty to Naofumi, that would go quite well with what he has planned. However, he doesn't feel like doing it himself, and so he sends Jormungandr to deal with the vine mess with the herbicide, as he sends Baldur to go deliver the medicine and deal with whatever else needs to be dealt with. He says to both of them, make sure you get them in our debt, do whatever it takes, as he says also, go and recruit some adventurers to go with you. It doesn't matter if they survive or not, I just want you two to survive and come back to me. You're way too valuable, as they say very well. As they actually go and both recruit a full team of adventurers and take with them. Raftalia asks where is Naofumi going to go, as Naofumi says that he's going to Shield Frieden. And since they have plenty of time since the next wave, and they actually say that no, they don't. Double thinking about this, they say they wouldn't be back in time for the next wave, but that's fine. As Naofumi says, let the other heroes pull their own weight for once. And so they head on to Shield Frieden, and they give instructions to Baldur and Jormungandr to meet up with them at Shield Frieden. So the team ends up splitting up. Loot Village is going to actually give Naofumi a lot of supplies on his way to go to Shield Frieden, since they don't want him getting hungry on the way there, and they can't really count on other villages being just as hospitable as Loot. And Loot owes Naofumi this. So after a long travel, they actually do end up getting to Shield Frieden, where they do go and talk to the royalty, and this is where Naofumi makes his plan known, with Raftalia by his side. He walks up to the ruler of Shield Frieden and says, I have a proposal for you. As they say, oh, and what has this hero come to propose? As Naofumi says, look, I know I'm not the shield hero, but I can be just as good to your people if you will give me the chance. And they say, oh, how can we test you? Naofumi asks if they've been dealing with the waves. And they say that yes, they actually have been, and no hero is here to help them. Naofumi thought this would be the case, and so he's using this as a bargaining chip, saying that he'll fight the next wave for Shield Frieden in the coming days. However, they'll have to do something for him in return, and they have to swear to do it no matter what it is. Schildfrieden says they want to know what the request will be first before they accept any type of help. So Naofumi says very well then, as he says that he wants to take over Malramark. He wants his own kingdom, and he will get one, whatever the cost and whatever the price. He plans to have a siege upon Malramark. They're nothing more than self-serving, idealistic bastards of Englishmen, and so he wishes to take them by force, slaughtering the royalty along the way, making sure that he becomes the king and make a proper Viking kingdom. This actually intrigues Schildfrieden's ruler, saying, well, what's in it for them? Naofumi says that he promises to become allies with them and to actually free all the slaves there and give them back to Schildfrieden, since they were their people that were wrongfully enslaved for just being in Malramark. As Schildfrieden says this would be a very enticing offer. What else can you offer us? As Naofumi says, oh, so this is all about what I can offer you, and not what you can instead offer to me. As they say, well, we want to hear what all you're offering so we can make a good counter-offer just as well. And Naofumi says, classic politics. Alright then, how about this? I will also give to you the help of all of Malramark's soldiers to fight against the waves for you, as well as allowing you to summon new heroes after I kill the other three. This gets Schildfrieden's royalty to immediately say yes, and now Naofumi says, before I agree, what can you offer me? As they say, we don't have much money, so we couldn't offer you anything financially, as Naofumi says, no, how about I just tell you what I want from you? As they say, okay, very well, tell us what you want. Naofumi says livestock, food, and beer, mead, and for them to eventually offer him weapons as well. However, a certain kind of weapons, as they actually agree, and they make a pact. From there, the wave would begin, as Balder and Jormungandr are teleported along with Raftalia and Naofumi to the wave in Schildfrieden. As they kill all the monsters, they notice that they're maxed out on their level. They've reached the level cap of 40, and so they're going to need their class upgrades. As Naofumi says, well, don't worry, that will be coming. And so they then just wipe out the wave. The Soul Eater is not a problem to them, especially with Naofumi's astral projection skill, which he has almost fully maxed out. So he's summoning 35 to 40 astral soldiers, which do quite a bit of damage. Remember, it scales to Naofumi's damage. So the wave is easily knocked out. However, instead of it immediately disappearing, there's someone else that comes in there. Someone with a scythe, as he says, well, 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 looks like we got a hero here. This is nothing personal, but it's to save my world. As Naofumi says, well, to be fair, this is personal. Fuck your world. As he charges right at Lark, as Lark tries to cancel out Naofumi's defense, it doesn't really go so well, as Lark and Naofumi are actually equal in terms of attack power, as Naofumi's not really doing anything for defense either. He's just parrying Lark's scythe and blocking it away when he can and counter-attacking. However, this is going nowhere, as Lark also has somebody else with him, a girl called Therese, who is keeping all the astral projections at bay, and Naofumi's actually running out of SP, keeping them there for too long. So this is quite the problem. Jormungandr and Balder are actually doing their best, as Jormungandr doesn't want to, reveal his trump card skill too soon, as Naofumi says that he will only call upon Jormungandr to use that skill at a moment of absolute crisis. So Jormungandr cannot activate it on his own, because he trusts Naofumi. Raftalia's actually had enough of this. Her daggers finally break, and she is defenseless without a weapon. And so Naofumi tosses her an axe, which she then grabs, and to her surprise, this feels way better than just using some daggers. as she immediately starts to actually push Therese back. And Naofumi says, "This is pissing me off," as something finally activates, as Lark says, "What are you, some type of Viking? Some pathetic excuse of a warrior? There's a reason they were all wiped out. They were too weak." And this pisses off Naofumi, and he actually sees something called Curse Series Berserker Mode. As Naofumi activates, it turns all his defensive stats to 0 and increases all his other stats by that amount. So Naofumi is way more powerful than Lark right now. However, it has the side effect of inducing madness, as Naofumi cannot be stopped. Lark is about to be killed, however Therese gets in the way and is killed right in front of Lark, drenching him with her blood. And before Lark can do anything, Naofumi's SP hits 0, taking him out of the Berserker mode, and the wave ends right there. Lark and Therese are sent back with the wave to their own world. And so, with the wave being successfully repelled, it's time for Schulfrieden to come through with their part of the offer. However, they're not going to do it all at once. Naofumi has a plan, as the shadows are not in Schulfrieden, as all borders have been closed, and they can't really enter since they have a lot of people looking at all entry points on the border to prepare for war. So the Queen's not going to have any kind of a heads up about this at all, as Schulfrieden does send word to the other countries to not interfere in the war, as it will allow for them to end up summoning heroes as well. So the other countries are actually looking at this as a positive for them, and if anything, offering up their own soldiers to help with the war efforts, which Naofumi does take. The more soldiers he can get to crush Malramork the easiest way possible, he will take it. As Naofumi then collects an army. They are done building his ships as weeks have passed, and honestly, everything is going Naofumi's way. As for what would happen to Melty, she would actually make it home alright. However, she would be assassinated since there's nobody there to really protect her. So, sucks for Melty, but that's what happens. Anyways, so with that out of the way, it is time to begin the war, as Naofumi marches. However, it's not the way you would expect. He is in the Viking battleships that are soaring through the air thanks to mages that can use wind and flying magic that send the army of ships all the way over to Malramork, who make it there in half the time. And once they are in the capital, Naofumi then has all the mages with fire magic to start casting fire magic spells down upon the capital, which actually do kill quite a lot of people, as then some ships start falling out of the skies to land on there, as Naofumi lands, cutting through the guards very easily. As all three of the heroes start rushing out of the capital to face Naofumi's army, they are shocked to see that a hero, one of them, is killing all of these people, causing so much senseless death. However, Naofumi just laughs at it, saying he's here to get his own kingdom. As all of them say, oh shit. So Naofumi actually has Balder, who does have a huge power up since they did get their class upgrades while at Schildfrieden. And remember, Balder took care of the zombie dragon, which means he does have a boost from that, as Jormungandr actually has a boost from the curse seed since he took care of that as well. And with all of their levels been upgrading and them leveling for almost a month in the other country, this has given them substantial gains, and they are way above any of the other heroes. So Jormungandr goes up against Itsuki, as Raftalia goes up against Motiyasu. However, Balder goes up against Ren. He's not liking the fact that Ren killed a dragon, and so it's time for some payback. especially since he knows he's stronger than Ren and has the zombie dragon's powers to boot. However, Naofumi just makes his way to the kingdom, as he sees Itsuki having to deal with the slick movements that come from Jormungandr as Jormungandr tries to get up close. Naofumi tells Jormungandr to end it quickly and that he has permission to use every skill as he sees fit. Jormungandr smiles, saying that there's no way Itsuki's gonna be able to stop him, as Jormungandr activates his ultimate skill, which allows him to transform into the world serpent, a form that makes him so colossally big he wraps around the entire world. There is no way for Itsuki to stop him, and all of his stats and skills and attacks, defense, they all are buffed by 1000, as it's called Mythical Transformation World Serpent, as Itsuki is literally, it's impossible for him to kill Jormungandr now. He can't do any damage to him. So Jormungandr literally eats Itsuki, making sure that his teeth impale Itsuki so he can't survive in his stomach and attack his way out of, since Baldur did tell him that the other dragon did eat him, which just made it easier for him to attack through and kill it. So Jormungandr has learned from Baldur's experience, not wanting to end up like the zombie dragon, and so Itsuki has been killed as his bow lays there in a puddle of blood. However, over there with Ren, it's not going any better for him, as Baldur is literally on pure brute strength alone in his hybrid form, outclassing Ren and damn near breaks his legendary sword, which with a few more hits does break. And since it's broken and no longer on the hilt, Baldur just grabs the broken part of the blade and slams it through Ren's throat, killing him, leaving Ren to just lay there in a puddle of his own blood, bleeding out slowly, as Baldur looks down on him, saying, "That was revenge for the dragon he slaughtered and the people he let that dragon's court poison," as he walks off to join Naofumi, with Jormungandr continuing to decimate all of the forces of Melromarc. And the fact that the queen is there as well actually surprises Naofumi. He definitely wants to take her alive if at all possible. After all, he does like how beautiful she is, and seeing how the only princess there now is mine, Naofumi thinks the queen could deserve a better heir. And so, as the king walks up to Naofumi, actually trying to kill him, Naofumi just takes his sword out and with one fluid motion cuts the king's head off. Mine is there looking in absolute shock as she tries to use her magic on Naofumi. However, with one hand he throws an axe at her, stabbing it into her chest as she falls down, bleeding out. And Naofumi walks over to Mine and says, "You know, you wouldn't even be useful as stress relief for my soldiers." So he cuts her arms off, cuts her legs off, and then with his hand on her head, before the queen can attack, he cuts off Mine's head and throws it at the queen's feet. However, Naofumi does not continue his attack, saying that he would like to take her alive if all she has to do to end all this senseless fighting and bloodshed is to just accept defeat and surrender to Naofumi. The queen says, "Not quite. Let's discuss the terms of surrender first to see if it's worth my time." Since the queen isn't keen to fight Naofumi, seeing how easily he just killed her family. And while she is mad, at least now she doesn't have to sentence them to death. So she's kind of trying to see this as, how does she get out alive and save as many people as possible, since Naofumi said that he would end the conflict if she surrendered to him. However, back with Raftalia and Motiyasu, Raftalia's actually had enough of Naofumi, and seeing all this senseless bloodshed, she is not for it. Even if this would be a great way to go to Valhalla, she does not like it whatsoever, as she tries to tell Motiyasu that they can stop fighting for a minute. She actually wants to talk, as Motiyasu says, "Oh, talk about how. As she says that she'll actually work with Motoyasu if she can get this slave crest removed. And with that, she'll actually fight Naofumi with him. Motoyasu is looking at her in shock, saying, "But you've been on his team for so long." And she says, "Yeah, and I want to kill him." And so Motoyasu says, "Very well then, let's do this." So they actually take a break from the war and find the slave trader, saying that they want to get the slave crest removed, and if he decides to decline, he will die by Motoyasu's spear. The slave trader, fearing for his life now more than ever, actually ends up removing Raphtalia's slave crest, which Naofumi immediately notices and says she's planning something. And so the queen says, what is this? As Naofumi explains that his slave removed her slave crest somehow, probably because of the slave trader. Damn brat. After all he's done for her, this is how she repays him. And so Naofumi then decides that he'll take the queen with him to actually show her what this war is doing and kind of give her motivation to surrender to him. If not, he'll just kill her. It would be an awful waste of a queen that could become Naofumi's bride. However, he's not gonna be taking any chances. So Naofumi drags the queen out there by her hair, actually showing her everything that's happening, as she is in shock, seeing all the civilians being killed, their homes raided and plundered. This is war on a scale that she never even knew existed. And so the queen says that she surrenders to Naofumi. However, before Naofumi can stop the conflict, Motoyasu charges at him, who is blocked by Boulder actually, as he says, "What, Raphtalia couldn't finish the job?" As Raphtalia then comes out there, charging at Boulder. However, her attack is parried by Naofumi, who actually disarms her quite a bit, as Raphtalia just looks at Naofumi, saying, "I told you I would kill you, and here I am to do it." As Naofumi says, "Very well, I'll send you off to Valhalla, little one." As she says, "Oh, you are not about to play the doting master on me now." As Naofumi says everything he's ever done was to toughen her up. Sure, he may have been a little cruel to her here and there, but he never did anything that he knew she couldn't survive. As Raphtalia mentions the time with the dog, Naofumi said he simply had faith that she would be able to dodge it. However, now that she's gone against him, in war, there is no surviving for her. As Naofumi then slices down Raphtalia, as Motoyasu is beaten down by Boulder, who then throws him to Jormungandr, who then eats Motoyasu like a snack. This is not very good. Now the queen has nobody that she can even hope to have go up against Naofumi, as Naofumi declares that the war is over. All enemies and traitors have been defeated. It is their victory. As everyone starts to cheer, and the queen is actually forced to make Naofumi the new ruler, as it is forced into by a political marriage. Naofumi marries the queen of Malromark and becomes its king and actual ruler, being above the queen this time, since she did lose the war that she had no idea it was even coming. All of the other villages actually approve of Naofumi being the one in charge, saying that Malromark was going to lead itself to its own destruction one way or another. With the deaths of those false heroes, it's actually a good thing. However, there is one party who is not accepting this, that being the church, who at this point, Naofumi just has Jormungandr go over there and eat everyone in it and just destroy the building. It was an eyesore to him, really. He didn't really get this whole religion in this land. The three heroes, why? The queen says that it was to give people hope and that they actually revered the three heroes for coming here and saving them. And Naofumi says, "You guys are so full of yourselves," as he looks to Shield Frieden, who actually honor the request and do form an alliance with Naofumi. In fact, every nation comes and pays tribute to Naofumi and actually enters an alliance with him. all the kingdoms are now at peace, and each one takes a turn summoning a hero, except for Malremark, who already has Naofumi. With this, they would actually go to the archipelago where Naofumi can instruct the other heroes on how to level up and level up very quickly. As all of them do, Naofumi gives them some soldiers that can help them grind and power level them, since he doesn't want to have to be supporting dead weight in the next wave coming up, which they have very little time to prepare for. However, Lark is not here this time. In this timeline, Lark will not be coming to this archipelago after the death of Therese, so the other heroes are pretty much unhindered, and since they all have a better understanding on this world and don't just think it's all a game, they all get a lot of gains in return, and they actually develop their skills instead of just, you know, leaning on the fact that they're a hero and have a legendary weapon. That never really set right with Naofumi, but however, he's having a hard time trusting anyone after the death of Raftalia. He of course trusts Boulder and Jormungandr to the absolute furthest degree that he could ever trust anybody. However, anyone else, even his own wife now, he can no longer trust, especially since he knows they may betray him like Raftalia did. So he keeps everyone else at a distance, except for when him and his wife share their bed, because Naofumi is trying to make an heir, but this time he would rather have a son than a daughter, because he doesn't really want the daughter to end up like mine from the queen's previous child. And he does learn that the queen was mourning the loss of her daughter Melty, who Naofumi never really got to meet in this timeline. However, the time then comes for the third wave to appear, and of course, it is a sea battle, which means man the Viking ships, as all the Viking ships row out there as Naofumi is leading the charge. Seeing there, he tells all the mages to focus their attacks and use lightning magic. This would actually be double effective, since it is a fish creature. Lightning is very, very powerful when conducted through water. It only amplifies the effect, as Naofumi has his archers as well, along with shield people, keeping all the other monsters from getting on board and actually doing a crazy ton of damage to the fish monster. They kill it relatively easily. However, the wave does not end as two people make their way down, that being Gloss and Lark, as Lark is thirsty for revenge against Naofumi, saying that that berserker mode isn't going to work on him. However, little did he know, Naofumi is well over level 100 at this point, telling Lark that this time he dies, or has he brought another woman to hide behind. As Lark says he hides behind no woman's skirt, he will fight his own battles. As Glass says that she's a warrior in her own right, as she will defeat Naofumi as well. Naofumi just laughs at this, and instead of the other heroes charging in, Naofumi tells them to hang back. He knows they're not ready for this type of fight. And so Naofumi, along with Boulder, go out to fight Lark and Glass, as Naofumi tells Jormungandr to use it. He wants to end this quickly. So once again, Jormungandr transforms into the World Serpent, who actually intimidates Glass quite a bit, as he eats the remains of the Wave Boss and gets a huge surge in power, as Naofumi's also leveled up since he put some of it into his weapon. This actually maxes out his skill, as he then surrounds Lark with 20 berserkers, as they're just all going in at Lark, as Naofumi is then able to pick him off little by little through slashes here, slashes there while he's fighting the berserkers. Lark does not last very long whatsoever, as Naofumi comes in, cutting Lark's head off. Glass, he actually has Boulder's spare, as Glass is just overwhelmed by Boulder's absolute defense, as he just keeps pushing forward, his overwhelming strength overpowering her very easily. as she is knocked down, and Naofumi has Glass taken in chains. As the wave ends, and before Glass can disappear, she actually ends up staying in this world due to being a prisoner of Naofumi's. He then takes her back to the chambers as he then interrogates her, asking why does she keep coming, and Glass tells him everything about how her world faces the waves and that everything else, according to her, saying that she has to save her world by killing the heroes of this one. Naofumi says that is ludicrous. How would killing the heroes of one world stop the waves from appearing? It makes no sense. Her logic is flawed, and so is she. As Glass says, then what do you reckon? Naofumi looks to the stars, since it is nighttime, saying that it's impossible for there to only be two worlds. In fact, this one just seems so crazy, and that this is just a theory of his, but each rift out there, there's a total of 8 of them, and if each one of them represents one world, then wouldn't it make sense that there are 8 worlds, all with other heroes? And if you just have to kill all the heroes of one world to save yours, then what would be the point? Wouldn't all the other worlds just focus on one world and kill off those heroes to save the other 7? As Glass starts following this, she does realize that it actually doesn't make sense. The waves would actually still keep coming. And Glass realizes that she lost Therese and Lark because of this misunderstanding. And so Naofumi says that she's going to stay and work for him now, and she has no right to refuse as the loser. And that's where I'm going to be leaving this off, as, you know, Season 2 hasn't came out yet. I'm not diving into that, as this was actually really fun for me to make, and I hope you guys did enjoy this. As anyways, I have been Crowned Fiend. If you're new, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace.